there was some dialogue and some clarification provided by the board regarding other opportunities that have been identified by the administration. So I just wanted to rehash. We've heard about concerns with the previous book being better from the board. We've also heard concerns about ensuring that the textbook and the curriculum improvement plan follow the appropriate process that the board has put in place. We heard that back in April. And now it seems that it's missing from the agenda with some additional clarification regarding other options that Dr. Scheid and some folks are investigating. So I was curious, what are those options? How do they differ from the original curriculum improvement plan that was recommended by the administration previously? What's the reason for them changing? And I'm hoping I can just understand and you can provide the community a little bit more clarity as to the process that went into deciding, we're going to go back to the drawing board and reassess other potential options. So I'm hoping that the board can provide some clarity into the decision-making process for that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment? Okay. If not, I will say that Dr. Scheid and her team have discovered other options that they want to explore, and they brought that to us and asked us to hold off on having the 7th grade social studies curriculum improvement plan on this month's agenda. So when Dr. Scheid and the team are ready, which I guess would that be next month, Dr. Scheid, do you suppose, or?
Mrs. Cohen, we typically don't have a curriculum meeting in July, but we may have to do that. Because at this time, we're not fully prepared to give you the community all of those answers. But we hope to before the start of the school year so that we can make purchases of whichever decision we come to.
And so, Mr. Foster, that's where those different options would be explained, is in their presentation. So if we have that in July, you could come back to the curriculum meeting then, or look it up online on our board docs if you can't make it. Okay. So then we will go into the agenda. The first item is the textbook approval for band in grades 4 through 8, and that is with Mrs. Werner.
Good evening. I want to ask, am I to go ahead and project the proposal?
You see that, Carolyn?
Yes, I see where it is. I believe I'm second down to the right where it says textbook.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, looks like we're set. The proposal that I'm submitting tonight is to change the method book used for our band program in grades 4 to 8 from Accent on Achievement to the Sound Innovation series. What inspired the search for a new series was the desire to find a band method book whose pacing better meets the needs of 4th and 5th grade beginner students and whose sequence of concepts, visual appeal, and accessories are an improvement overall from the series we currently use. The current series, Accent on Achievement, has been in use in our band program since the early 2000s. We are asking for a set of Sound Innovations books, 1 and 2, and the teacher manual for each elementary building and middle school. If you have any questions about the proposal, I'd be happy to answer them now.
Mrs. Warner, the copyright date is 2011. Typically, our copyright dates are much more recent than that. Is there a reason why this has not been updated, or that there isn't a more current book?
So the Sound Innovations book copyright date is 2011. I think that having a book that within the past 7 years is pretty good, because you don't want to just get a book the year it comes out, because you want to see that teachers have tested it and that it's a book that's working with their students, and that you can already have kind of that affirmation from others. So the fact that it is pretty current compared to our other book, like I said, we've been using Accent on Achievement at least since the early 2000s. 6th grade was still in our elementary buildings. So this is one of the newer band textbooks to come out. And the fact that, if you see on the second page of the proposal, we've listed a number of school districts that are currently using this book. So it kind of gives a testament to us that our other music educators have tried it, it's successful with their students. And so while that is, not as, it's not a 2018 book, I do like that it has had some time to be proven.
Yes.
Forgive my ignorance, I didn't know that there would be different methods of teaching.
Sure.
Music. So that is I'm glad you asked that question, Dr. Darnell. Does anyone else have any other questions? So is everybody okay with moving it to the board meeting?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, and the next item on the agenda is the service learning pilot results and recommendations with Ms. Mary Lou Ashworth.
Good evening, everyone. I am Mary Lou Ashworth, the librarian at Central Middle School and the High School Service Learning Club advisor. I did my presentation using that Simon Sinek, that why, how, what model, because a lot of times I do that with my students. So, and I thought it fit well with giving this presentation to the curriculum committee. So I also added the who so that you could be informed with who the Service Learning Club was designed for. So it was designed originally in its pilot phase for the high school, and there was a little bit of an intention to target some Key Club and National Honor Society students in the original thought, I think. And then why it came to be was they were listed there. It was an original goal in the comprehensive plan. My understanding was there was a small task force that had former employees like Dr. Phillips and Mrs. Strabeck, and then I think Dr. Scheib took over to look at the concept of having service as part of a Pennridge High School graduation requirement. And the feedback was they weren't going to go in that direction, but they were going to try to do something more with service in the high school, thereby piloting a club and see how that club would go. And then again, as the district SEL driving team, it was a goal coming out of there as a way to build some character, some grit. And service learning should be connected to real life learning. And so how it got off the ground was the pilot was recommended to the board and approved. And then 50 students was the number that no more than 50 students in the pilot year. Reflection should be part of the club. And then consider, were we going to have something like a Pennridge Service Scholar, some other form of recognition for the students who consistently, if the pilot went on and on, consistently participated in over a number of years. And they were looking for an advisor, and that was me. I think I was the only applicant, but I got the job. So they hired me in the summer of 2017. So I came in the summer and did some work. Primarily, I started doing some work with the Key Club and National Honor Society advisors, who quite frankly were surprised. I had well over 325 participants in Key Club and more than that in Honor Society, and they weren't understanding how I would be different. So I kind of went back to the drawing board, Dr. Scheib, Michelle Burkhart, and said, I need to be different and I don't want to just offer kids something. So we tried to see if we could promote the club to like tech school or maybe students who weren't in National Honor Society and Key Club. We certainly weren't going to close it to them, but I was going to see if I could drum up some business in some other ways, which I did. I did try to do a number of things, and however, most of my kids were on Key Club and Honor Society, although not all of them. And I did originally get a couple of kids from the tech school come on board with me. So, in the beginning, I did all of the things to get off the ground that, I don't teach in the high school, but I came to Sign Up Club. I had posters made. I, tapped older brothers and sisters like, tell your sister about this club. It's going to be great. And they're going to get to work with me. And they love me, even if they forget. They do. And they should see me. You're laughing because I probably told your kid that. And so I did have a great response originally. I had about 45 to 50 kids sign up and a couple of kids at the high school. I went out there a number of times to see if I could, at lunchtime generate some business. But in the end, I had 24 kids who actually completed the paperwork, and I did some surveying, and one of the things that I did differently was that I would always be where they would be doing service, because one of the things I found out in my investigation is a number of places are interested in students volunteering, but not unsupervised students. They really want an adult who is directing and supervising and responsible for the students. So in surveying the bulk of my club, they really wanted to do something with animals. I made a connection at Last Chance Ranch, and that's where we decided to do our Pennridge service. So we did all the orientation permission slips and went out there every single month and volunteered from 8 to 11:30. And they were there by 8:30. But in the end, in the beginning, I had a huge turnout, probably close to 20 kids. But then as the year went on and kids got more heavily scheduled, SAT, prom, the only month we didn't go was December. And other than that, we were at Last Chance Ranch the third Saturday of every month. And I think the kids that did it got a great deal out of it. They loved it. I surveyed them. I had some trouble getting reflection. They didn't seem to be interested in reflecting with me every time they just volunteered, cleaned out cages, shoveled dog, poop. They were not interested in writing about it, And so I do think that, it was they got a lot of value out of it, and they reported it back on a final survey that I, really pressed on them and asked them please to just fill it out. I needed some feedback. And we did also have a food drive, and we had a book club, a book drive. That was something that the students asked me to do, so I had a little competition between the high school, and I ran it at my middle school. I got, I'm sorry to say, about 12 canned goods at the high school, and I got about 900 pounds out of the middle school. The book drive was a little better received at the high school, and kids reported, frankly, they just didn't know I was doing it, but I don't know how they didn't know. I was giving posters, I was on the Rumble, I had my kids talk to all their friends. So we didn't only do that, we also did a book drive and a food drive, and so I did get student feedback. They reported things like they did feel they impacted their community in a positive way. It made them think of others. They didn't know that Last Chance Ranch was there, and one or two of my kids did go back and independently volunteer at Last Chance Ranch on their own. So my recommendations going forward is I honestly think the club is a bit redundant at the high school. I think it's much more necessary and would really get off the ground in the middle school, and in the way that we've moved National Honor Society Junior to the middle school. I'd really love to move this club to the middle schools. I think it has a real value there and a place there. So when I went back and did some real investigating about kids being interested in being called a Pennridge Service Scholar, they reported they weren't that interested. They really were interested in being a Key Club Scholar because that had national recognition on their transcripts and to colleges. And when I do have a few friends who have, a brother or sister who works in admissions, and Steph and I asked, and they said it wouldn't hurt them, but a college wouldn't know what a Pennridge Service Scholar was. So unless there was a way of identifying that, it probably would kind of be a neutral thing, maybe a little positive, but not really an impact. So my recommendation moving forward is go the pilot again, and then for 2018 and 19, but try it in the middle school and take a look at the Key Club has, I think it's called Bookends, which is something moving it into the middle school and follow some of those guidelines. Questions?
So do you think you'd be able to, so you would do that bookends thing as opposed to having a Pennridge service learning group?
I think I would meet with the Key Club and National Honor Society and make sure that the kids that we're, equipping in the middle school will be well tooled to fit into Key Club. And I did meet with Bob once upon a time when I was looking at I knew I wanted to do some kind of community service. And it is a real formal program, so I'm not sure I could do it in this, you have to petition, there's a lot of things that you have to do, but that would be something I would definitely look at and make sure is that something that we want to do. But I need to first get board approval to move the service club to the middle school level, and then I will go from there. Like, I certainly would think that's the way that I would go, unless there'd be some reason that we wouldn't want to be the exact formal thing in the bookend. I think it's called bookends.
And so would you be able to do all 3 middle schools, or do you think you'd need someone to help?
I think you need an advisor in all
each
3 middle
school, right?
schools, because honestly and sincerely, I think that I would work with those advisors, we would co-facilitate, because if I'm going to be going to Last Chance Ranch, or I'm going to be doing something around Martin Luther King or there, then I want that opportunity to go to all my kids in all 3 middle schools, but I know that I can't already, because I do some community service at Central already, and I will have more than enough kids I can. I think you would need an advisor that's moving the program, in all 3 middle schools. You would need an advisor per middle school. And someone's already reached out to me at North and heard about some of the service that I'm doing and asking me if there's something that they could get in, and I would strong arm someone at South. Don't worry, Mrs. Cummings.
No, I think, I agree, that there needs to be someone in each school if it's going to be done,
I agree.
But I love the idea. I wouldn't say no to any kind of service program for the students, so I think it'd be a great idea for them to try it in the middle school. You can't start them too young.
No, I agree, and we do have a lot of our students, like we're lucky at Central, we have the community center right around the corner, and we do walk our kids over and decorate for dances and do at least 2 community activities with them every year. We do tea and tap. We do one, either we take our students there, and the other that we always do is lunch and a show, that we treat the seniors and whoever wants to come for a small donation to lunch and a show at Central. So it's well received, and the kids are excited about it.
Good. Thank you. All right, so if everybody's okay with moving this recommendation, we'll put it to the board meeting. And I just wanted to make a comment since we're on the topic of service. Today I had the opportunity to go, and something that I think sort of fits into this category, ways for our students to serve people in the community. Our guitar building class, which is renowned throughout the state, some of the students in that class participated in the governor's STEM competition, and their project was to make an electric guitar and an acoustic guitar. They decided to make it with Pennsylvania hardwoods. They used all Pennsylvania materials to make these guitars, and then they chose 2 veterans who suffer from PTSD, and they donated the guitars to these 2 people. And so today they had a ceremony, a reception in the cafeteria here at the high school, and the 2 gentlemen came to receive their guitars, and it was, it was a very moving experience to see them receive that, and I thought it was just another way that our students can serve the community. I thought it was something kind of different and that sets Pennridge apart. And I thought it was really nice. The men loved their guitars. They specialized them. The acoustic one had a keystone at the top of it. They had their name. Each man's name was on the guitar somewhere, and they were just really touched by it. And the one man said that these kids will always be precious to them, and that just touched my heart. So I wanted to share that during our service talk. Okay. Now I have to get back to the other agenda items. 2nd grade swimming recommendations with Ms. Deb Brady and Mr. Jacob Grant.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're having a great night. I am here to talk about, as you said, 2nd grade swimming. I was a member of the elementary school scheduling committee, and we were charged with looking at the program to make some recommendations for the future of the program. So the current program is available for all second grade students. It runs for 7 weeks. Each classroom goes in the entire school district, so that's one of the really great things. However, because of getting to the high school, we need to have the kids pack up and be ready to go at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Normally, their gym classes don't start until 2:35. So one of the challenges is when you're scheduling to make sure that you have enough flexible time so that your physical education teacher has done all of his or her classes so that they can be ready to go by 2 o'clock, which means even though it is only 7 weeks out of your schedule, you actually have to look at that from the very day one so that you have flexibility because you can't cancel the classes for other students. In addition to that, because they are leaving at 2 o'clock instead of at approximately 2:35, they are losing instructional time. And if you take that 35 minutes that they lose over the 7-week period, they lose about 245 minutes a school year of instructional time, which adds up very quickly. In addition, we have been looking at one of the recommendations of the scheduling committee is trying to find time where we can give our students more individualized time for enriching the curriculum or also remediating the students during that time. And when we were looking at how can we get the staff to support that, we thought, well, we could include the special area teachers when they're not teaching. So if our physical education teachers didn't have to leave early, that would also be some more time that they could fit in and work with our students across grade levels. The second thing that we looked at was the cost of transportation. And believe it or not, it cost over $6,300 for the year to transport the children from each of the elementary schools back and forth, which works out to just over $900 per school. Another issue that we have encountered is a lack of volunteers, not because parents don't want to do it, not even the clearances, although that's a part of it. It's just that, as I'm sure you're aware, more and more parents are working. And it's very difficult for them to take time off, or if they're stay at home, they may have young children, which means they have to arrange for sitters because we don't have them take young children for a variety of purposes. One of the other things that we encounter, and I can speak to this very personally because we do our swimming program from about the 3rd week of December through February, which is prime time for bad weather. So if we have an early dismissal day, even though the school schedule day doesn't change, so if it's a day 1, we move on if we get out early. The problem is we then have to reschedule that swim lesson for a later time in the year. So our children may go to swimming 6 weeks between December and February, and their makeup day, even though we try to build some days in, may not be until June. So that's hard for the continuity. The other thing is with the volunteers, if we have a day off because of a snow day, we come back on that day. So if the snow day's on a day 1, the kids return the next day or however many days later on a day 1, and the parents don't often have time to be able to rearrange their schedule, or they can't. Maybe they have off on a Tuesday, the snow day now makes the swim day a Wednesday. So we don't have volunteers, and the problem with that comes in during changing and preparing for swimming as well as changing after swimming, because our swim instructors are getting changed at that time, so there's no one in there to assist them. And if you know second graders, even though we tell them to dry off, they don't do a really good job with that, and they get their clothes on backwards, or they're not bundled up. So we really do need people in there to help out our little ones. That said, we were, as a group, charged with coming up, what are the advantages of the program and what are some of the disadvantages? And Mrs. Walters, if I forget anything, please jump in because she was part of the program. The advantage clearly was all of our kids get exposure to swimming in second grade, which is a phenomenal thing because some of our kids may not have any exposure until their first time in water, and that's certainly not something that we want to take the risk of. Also, it was a great great use of district facilities. And way back when we were talking about adding a high school swimming pool, that was one of the things that we said, well, how can we make sure that we're using it to its fullest potential? And including second grade swimming was a great thing. Also, it teaches swim safety. So even kids who may have access to swimming throughout their younger years, they may not have been trained by professionals on the appropriate ways to make sure that they're safe during swimming opportunities. The disadvantages, as we already talked about, are scheduling conflicts, and it's not just an elementary scheduling conflict, it also is a conflict for the high school, trying to make sure that everyone is out of the pool so we can get there, so that we can get into the locker room, so that also impedes their scheduling flexibility. As we talked about, the transportation costs are also a disadvantage, and like we said, clearances and volunteers. But we all agreed that we did not want to give up the program. We wanted to make sure that our second graders still have this wonderful opportunity, which is not an opportunity that is offered in all of our surrounding districts. I know my kids went through North Penn, and they didn't have this opportunity. So what we found was, and I'm going to let Jacob talk more about this, is we wanted to make sure if we were going to discontinue it during the school day, that there was another program out there that we could still offer to our students and their families to make sure that all of the things that we thought were so important, the exposure to swimming, the safety issues, would be offered to our children so that all of them had that benefit. And what we found was a program that would involve the YMCA, however, it would continue at our high school, still using our facility. So we think that this is a best solution, and it takes care of the disadvantages while making sure that the advantages of the swim program continue. And actually, what you'll hear is that the students actually will have an extra week of opportunity of lessons. So it actually increases the amount of time they will have exposure to water. So, do you have any questions for me, or I can pass on to Jacob? You're good. All right, Jacob, you're up.
All right, so something that we were looking for when we figured this out was, with the YMCA, was transitioning from a learning to swim program to a safety around water, which definitely aligns with the program that we're currently running. We do, with the second graders, do currently have swim lessons, but also in those 7 lessons that they get, we do have 3 safety lessons as well. So this transition that the YMCA did was really good and really aligned with what we were going for. Like it says up there, the goal of this new program is to reduce children's risk of drowning, which is exactly what we were doing with the second grade program, so these are very well aligned. The big reason that they say to go with second graders is because at this time, this is when the age when kids start to become more independent in the pool. They start to go with friends and family members to the pool, and they're starting to swim on their own. So this is a big point for them to start learning. They also say that if by the time that a child reaches the 3rd grade, if they haven't learned to swim, it's not likely that they are going to ever learn to swim. It's also a good time with the growth of their body and taking on new challenges. It is a really important time for them to start learning to swim in the 2nd grade. This program consists of these different bullet points: personal safety, personal growth, stroke development, water games, and rescue. This is no change from what we currently offer. We do all 5 of these during our lessons at the 2nd grade that we currently run, and the YMCA is continuing that, which is great. It doesn't change really much of the program at all besides what Ms. Brady said, to add a week, so they'll get an extra lesson in there. The proposal of when we wanted to do it was have 3 different sessions: a fall session, a winter session, and a spring session. The fall session would be September, October, possibly into November, depending on when we start it. And we would offer on Wednesday nights and Saturday mornings. This first session would be for beginners only. From what we have determined in this current 2nd grade, is a majority of our 2nd graders, when they come in and are evaluated, are beginners. And having a session with only beginners takes the opportunity away for the kids to be looking at other groups and seeing what they're doing and saying, oh, why am I not in the deep end? Why am I down here, on the stairs, learning to blow bubbles and put my face in when you've got kids jumping in and swimming in the deep end? So we can focus solely on the beginners at that time, so there's no intermix of that. Once you get to the winter session, in January and February, we would have another session for beginners, but we would also introduce the intermediate group at this time as well. And then the 3rd session in the spring, we would offer it to beginner, intermediate, and advanced swimmers. There will be no makeup lessons, like if you miss it for a soccer game or a family birthday or something like that, there isn't going to be a makeup lesson, which is the same with the 2nd grade program right now. If you're absent on a day of school, you don't get to come with another class. You just unfortunately missed out on that one. So it is run by the YMCA. However, you do not need a YMCA membership since they are coming here to run the lessons. They're not using the YMCA pool, they are using the high school pool. However, it is staffed completely by the YMCA. their swim instructors and their lifeguards will be running the program just at our pool. The last thing is the cost of the program. This is completely free. The YMCA offers this to all second graders completely free of charge. Are there any questions?
No.
Mr. Grant?
Yes.
What or who gives up time to accommodate these students? Because obviously this is time, I suspect, that is already utilized in the pool.
So we have one group that uses our pool mainly in the fall and winter, and that is the Pennridge Aquatic Club. Right now, they're currently in there 4 nights a week and on Saturday afternoons, so nobody would have to give up their time on Saturday mornings. That would be totally fine. And you know, we would have to rework the schedule with Pennridge Aquatic Club because they currently do use Wednesday nights, but you know, we can switch around. Like, we don't have anything in there on Monday nights that they would be able to switch to. So in the end, there would be very minimal switching around of schedules and very minimal usage of time. The reason we went with Monday or Wednesday nights was because our high school water polo team and swim team, all of their matches and swim meets are on Tuesday and Thursday nights. So this way we wouldn't have to cancel or reschedule or push back the second grade program if they were to go on a Wednesday night, because we don't have anything in there on that night, school-wise.
The other issue I see is that this is voluntary, right? So students will come who want to come or their parents want them to come, or both. But I'm sure there will be some of our second graders who don't come. So you lose the component of everybody getting that opportunity. That's the downside that I see.
Kind of going along with what Dr. Vernell said, I was wondering about students who wouldn't have transportation, I guess, and I know we can't worry about everybody all the time, but it's just one thought I had. Did you think about that, or possibilities of what to do?
I'm just in charge of pool scheduling. I didn't sit on the committee that did any of this.
No, I was just wondering if it came up in conversation
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely came up in conversation. You know, we thought this was the best alternative to what we currently offer. You know, it adds a week of lessons. It still gives them the free of charge. It doesn't cost the district the money that it does. But you know, with how important swimming is and water safety, we felt like a lot of people would take use of it.
I think it's definitely better. The second grade program as it is, I think, has a lot of disadvantages, you know, it has a lot of struggles. So I appreciate you working on thinking of some different kind of option. Is it one, so you would limit people to one session per child per year? Like, you couldn't sign up for fall and winter and whatever?
Correct. So yeah, it's you get one 8-week lesson, just like the current program is. You know, as the aquatic instructor, we do offer additional swim lessons for the community. It is open to the community. So we run our own lesson program throughout the week and on the weekends. That it'll be a great funnel program for ours. If people come and take these 8 free YMCA lessons, at the end, if they want to continue on, it's a great place for me to step in and say, well, we offer lessons. And then the YMCA said that they will also continue. If you want to continue, you can go down to the YMCA and continue those lessons if our schedule doesn't work out.
I just wanted to make a comment that I think this is a really good solution, having sat at the table for 3 days and thrown around what is the best outcome. I agree that it is disappointing that there are going to be some second grade students that won't take advantage of this program, but I'm also happy that they're not going to be missing 35 minutes 7 times.
Yeah, 245 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
245
So
minutes.
to me, I feel like all the second graders are going to get that time back in the classroom, and that to me is a win. So thank you for that.
I would also like to add, when we originally met with Svetlana, they had said that they were originally, what they currently ran was you only get the free lessons if you don't pass a swim test. So, and based on that, they did it, I believe it was William Tennant, and she said, like 30% of their kids passed the swim test, so those 30% got cut out and didn't get the free lessons, and we pushed for, hey, we want everybody since that's what we're currently offering, and they did go ahead and agree with that and give us everybody free lessons. So it was definitely something that we worked hard for.
Are there any other questions? Or Dr. Shah, did you want to? Oh, okay. Oh, and I also noted that we don't have any more worries about underuse of our pool, do we? I know that might have been a worry that we might not use it enough, but I think we justify the pool being there. Okay, so thank you. Is everybody okay with moving it forward? Yes, all right, we'll go forward to the board meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next item is the 6th grade social studies textbook with Mr. Berberka. Sorry.
Good evening, everyone. I have two proposals for you this evening. The first proposal is for the 6th grade textbook update. This is our 6th grade course, The Ancient World. We are recommending History Alive, The Ancient World, which is published by TCI. They actually have a digital bundle available, which includes the print text as well as a 6-year digital license for $92. We're going to buy 250 subscriptions, which provides enough of a classroom set of the textbook as well as the licenses. And then, of course, the subscriptions for the teachers as well, for a total of $28,500, which is through the program improvement budget. In terms of our selection process, we looked at 2 other sources beside this one. And all the teachers at the middle school, 6th grade teachers, filled out rubrics looking at 4 categories: curriculum match, instructional properties, presentation, and equity issues. And according to the rubrics, the TCI program had the highest score, and we selected it mostly because of its connection to the curriculum, the ease of use, and the interactive resources. And of course, TCI takes a very unique approach. History Alive takes a very unique approach to the educational realm of social studies. And the teachers have used the resource before and are very happy with the digital resources as well as the textbook. So they're very happy with updating it to the current version. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the 6th grade.
Anyone have any questions on the History Alive? Oh, Dr. Yarn.
Can you, Mr. Berberka, can you give us a sort of insight on TCI itself? That's not a common publisher, at least not to me, it is not.
When I first started teaching in Virginia, about 20 years ago, Teachers Curriculum Institute was just starting out. And I actually was involved in a week-long workshop with their program. And essentially what they try to do is engage students through the use of very interactive tools. So as students are working on projects in the class, there are typically a series of placards. There are typically a series of images or maps or things of that sort. And the program itself is built around interaction and engagement with the students. They do an activity called Desk Olympics, which is putting students into groups very quickly so they can get to work as quickly as possible with what they need to do. And so it shows students how to work together, how to work collaboratively. There's interactive journals along with it in terms of students taking notes in terms of the content, but then also responding to it in some way. So they started out 20 years ago, and they, in being part of that workshop when I originally went into teaching, it really informed my teaching moving forward as well in terms of how to engage students and what kind of pedagogy to use in the classroom. And since then, TCI has expanded to multiple grade levels and have won numerous awards for their very engaging, very interactive approach to learning.
If there aren't any more questions, is everybody okay with the 6th grade proposal? Mr. Berberka, if you want to move on to the Euro, AP Euro.
Okay, my second proposal is for our AP European course. AP European actually has not run for the last couple of years due to decreased enrollment. We did have enough students to run the course this year, so we're very happy about that. We hope that that trend continues, of course. And so in the intervening years, the last time we ran this course was 2014-15. In the intervening years, number one, our current textbook is no longer being published. And number two, the College Board actually made some updates to the AP European course. So we need to update our textbook to align with those two things. So the textbooks that we looked at were actually 3 different textbooks, and Mr. Jim Valletta and myself looked at these. He's our AP European teacher. He was the teacher several years ago as well. And we decided to pick Western Civilization since 1300, the AP edition, 10th student edition. It's published by Cengage Learning, and of course they offer the digital package as well. Their digital component is called MindTap, which actually integrates very well with our campus at the high school. So we could use that. It's a lot of, it's robust, engaging resources, and it also, the textbook that Mr. Valletta really looked at as the winning option, it really blends the content of an AP course with the visuals that were needed in a high school course to help the students understand some of the content. And actually, the author, Spielvogel, is actually the author of one of our honors texts. And so we are very happy with his work, and we very much, he's actually a Penn State professor, so we like that as well. So we thought the Western Civilization, again, looking at 3 different sources, filling out the rubrics again. I believe those rubrics are attached, and you also have access to the textbook as well. Those rubrics are there. We decided that the Western Civilization book was the best one moving forward. Now, this is a class of, I think we're at 17 or 18 students right now, so we'll be ordering 20 of these. So the expenditure is only going to be about $2,800, and that'll be coming out of the social studies department budget versus program improvement. So we can cover that through our high school budget. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? I just have a comment. Dr. Spielvogel was my professor at Penn State,
Perfect.
so when I saw the name on the spine, that's not a common name. So, yes, it's my professor. So I look back at my transcript. I got a B+ in one class and an A- in one of his other classes, but I was really excited. And he is really well recognized professor, a lot of honors from Penn State, so it's a great choice.
Perfect.
All right, so if everybody's okay, this one will move forward to the board meeting as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Next item is the class rank follow-up presentation with Mr. Juki.
Good evening. I actually fast forwarded the slide to the final slide with the recommendations, but of course we can go back and reference any slide in the original presentation if there were questions regarding any of that. Just to review, our recommendation based on our research and of course in contact with not only organizations like the College Board and the organization that organizes admissions counselors and guidance counselors. We also spoke with surrounding school districts in Bucks County and Montgomery County. Our recommendation is to eliminate class rank on our transcripts, beginning with the class of 2021. Of course, we will report percentile as colleges or organizations might request for various reasons, be it for scholarship money or maybe the school has a different admission policy that they want class rank or percentile. We can certainly create those calculations and provide that. The calculations that we will provide, which is a question from last time, will be based on a GPA report, and of course that report will come out in numerical order, and it can be run. Usually it's run at the end of a marking period would be the natural way we would do that, because to run it any more frequently than that, we couldn't be assured that teachers would have their grades completed and things like that, so we can only run it at that interval. The other recommendation, and of course that would be on your, you would do that as a school board, would be to look at policy number 214 and see what needs to be updated there. And there's a statement in there, I believe, about the utilization of class rank. It doesn't necessarily go into the details of how to calculate it, but there is a mention there of utilizing class rank, and I guess that would be the center of that focus. Certainly clearly up to the policy committee. Again, the class rank or percentile would not appear on the transcript, but it, again, would be available as requested by colleges and other, I know there's other places that provide scholarships, and if they would want to request that, that would be absolutely fine. We would also update our program of studies to reflect the change on the calculation method of the GPA, not to include credits. And then finally, we would, provided we move forward from here, we would then relook at our current system of recognizing students and their accomplishments. At this point, the best, I wouldn't say the best, but certainly the one that stands out the most is the cum laude system that rewards student performance based on a level of grade point average, whether it's summa cum laude, magna cum laude, or cum laude, and how they would be recognized might be if they were to wear something at graduation, or whatever the case might be. We would maintain a public acknowledgement at graduation of those students who reach those plateaus of achievement. And something that, of course, is very popular in the community and at Pennridge is our 10% dinner. And of course, we could create a summa dinner, or whatever you want to call it, certainly acknowledging those people, and of course, inviting their families in to come celebrate that event with us. Your questions?
I'm not a fan of this recommendation, as you may have already guessed. And I do think that things, whether you're talking about class rank or the GPA, one of the first things we could and should do is reform the system mathematically. And by that I mean any statistician that takes one of our courses or anyone else knows that when you average numbers which have one significant figure and you give a 3-digit average, 3 significant digit average figure, that's erroneous. You really should only have one significant figure. Now what that will do, obviously, is create numerous ties among our students. But I think we'd be better served than to do what we do currently, which is to make that out to the 3rd decimal place, and that 3rd decimal place often decides the difference between the top student, the 2nd student, and so forth. I also think that we should be looking at things like the issue of the students that transfer in, and the fact that the current system allows after 4 semesters that they be averaged in pretty much as is, taking everything that comes before that at face value. And face value, as we've pointed out, or you've pointed out, isn't always what it seems. The classic example is our vocational students, vocational technical students, because they do get more credits simply by the way their schedule is designed. So there are a lot of things here that I think should be changed. I also recently did the review for our super seniors, which has a lot to do with tonight because it also has to do with the service learning component, but in terms of the grade point average or the class rank, I note that about 10% of our class are straight A students. It's a lot. I frankly think that there is or has been grade inflation over the years, and that further confuses this issue of who's at the top and who's not. And it wasn't a small sample. This year we had 55 students apply for our super seniors, so that's more than 10% of the graduating class. So it was a significant number of students that apply. Obviously, they tend to be at the top, not in the middle, or the bottom, certainly. But I think all those things, in this case, I do agree with Mrs. Furlong, and that's a rarity, she will admit, I'm sure, that in the real world, certainly in the world where I worked, one of the things that happened with the dreaded yearly evaluation that everybody got was, before they gave raises, they ranked everyone in the organization, there were about 160 of us, from number 1 to number 166. And that actually was the president of the organization who did that ultimately, on the recommendation of the people who supervise. So in the real world, that does happen. There is a number 1 and there is a number bottom, whatever that number may be. I don't think that's a bad thing for our students to be competing for. I actually think it's a good thing when we have competition. And I think with the GPA, as opposed to the class rank, students will figure out how to manipulate the GPA. We have obviously AP courses and honors courses that give an additional credit for a higher grade. That will allow them to do it differently, but they will still do it to get to the top. So personally, I would rather reform the policy than remove it.
Any other questions or comments? I did have, so the percentile wouldn't even be put on the transcript for the
No.
student?
No, it would be provided based on a request of a school or whatever, or for the purpose of a scholarship on it or whatever.
And I do agree that no matter what system you have, students are going to find a way to, can't think of a better word than game the system, but they're going to figure out a way to manipulate it despite what you might attempt to do. But I also agree with Mrs. Furlong and Dr. Yarnell that I do want to see our students' academic achievement being celebrated and recognized, and I wouldn't want to do this in an effort to just kind of wipe away that aspect of competition and rewarding the students who are achieving, going out of their, doing above and beyond what they're asked to do. So I would be okay if we did with the, as you were saying, with the cum laude and summa cum laude and magna cum laude. That would be one thing to me that would still enable us to acknowledge students who have gotten that extra academic achievement. And I don't know if you want to revisit some of the things that you didn't go through the whole presentation, but there were some reasons that you had. If you could just quickly run down what you think
Sure.
are the top reasons why you would want to do this.
That's on slide 3 if you have that, there. The current ranking system, one aspect that is in our current ranking system, our current calculation system, includes the number of credits that students take. And what this causes is, in some cases, is students to look for credit quantity as opposed to their interests, their talents, or their career goals. Sometimes it results in a student taking a higher level class, but sometimes it just results in them finding a way to add more credits to their repertoire of courses. And that's been a concern, and we've seen many cases where I think sometimes that gets in the way of really looking at pure student achievement based on their performance against learning goals and standards in a classroom. In other words, and I understand in the real world it can be different, but in our business, I think we need to focus essentially on the learning. And I think by looking at that, at least